because that just crashed, not injuring anybody except the people in the plane. And then the final one was Flight 175, a 767, again en route from Boston to Los Angeles. I am told now that we are expecting any minute the governor and the mayor to talk to us live. They'll be speaking, of course, about the incidents of the morning. As you guys well know, we will rehash it once again while we're waiting for the mayor and the governor. Just shortly before 9 o'clock this morning, a hijacked, huge jumbo jet crashed into the World Trade Center. Then shortly after 9 o'clock, a few minutes later, yet another hijacked commercial jet smashed into the other tower. There's a picture of it happening, of the World Trade Center. And then minutes after that, we got word from Washington that the Pentagon had also been the target of a hijacked suicide bomber plane. And so 3 of the nation's most public facilities, and including 2 of the key office buildings here in New York and the government center in Washington, the nerve center of the military operations of our government, all the victims of terrorist attacks. And as a consequence here in New York, we can say now that you can get out of Manhattan, but you'll find it very difficult to get inside, because all public transportation will take you away from the island of Manhattan, but none, right now anyway, will take you back in. And there are police covering the bridges, the roads, tunnels in and out of Manhattan to make sure that none of that, nobody gets back into Manhattan. Michael?
I might also say that it's very difficult once you do get into Manhattan to get around. An hour ago, the FDR Drive was closed all the way down. They're using that for emergency vehicles. 2nd Avenue, I had to pass through a number of checkpoints before I could get through. And luckily, I happened to have press credentials, and after some begging, they allowed me to pass by. But all of those roads are actually closed down, and it's very difficult to move around the city at this point.
So is it manned by police in the streets, or is it civilians out there? I mean, who's doing this? Because you would think a concentration of police personnel and fire department would be down at the scene in Lower Manhattan.
I think that what you have is a situation where resources are so stretched that they're actually using police cadets to handle these intersections. And there seems to be some confusion, although they're doing a very good job of keeping things calm. But they're actually using cadets to do that, and civilians are joining in as well.
And we've been told that the governor has called out the National Guard, so I imagine it will take some time to mobilize those forces. Maybe they'll come in the latter end of it, but that also has taken place. Tom Kelly, the spokesperson for the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, which operates all the public transportation in New York, is on the phone with us. Tom?
Jim, I just wanted to give you an update now on the situation. We have restored service to the A, B, C, D, E, F, J, M, L, and the number 5 and the number 7 services has been restored. We do not yet have service restored on the 1, 2, 3, 4, or the 9, and that's due to a problem with the AC and the DC power that supplies the electricity to the trains and the signals. As I reported to you earlier, Penn Station has been reopened, and we have limited eastbound service to get people out of the city. The same with Metro North. Now, we have been able to open 1 lane of the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel exiting the city, but that is totally congested in that area, and I would recommend that people not use that. All of our other bridges and the Queens Midtown Tunnel are open in the outbound direction. Now, for any emergency personnel who have to report into the city using any of our railroads, either Metro North, Long Island Railroad, or the train system, the subway system, when we don't allow passengers on those trains coming into Manhattan, we suggest that those emergency personnel, including anybody in the National Guard who may have been called up, notify someone on the train crew, and they will then be permitted to come into Manhattan.
All right, Tommy, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Right, Jim.
Now for the situation on the roads. Let's go to Adrian Nardo.
Okay, Jim, and as you can imagine, it's you cannot get into the city, and it's easier to get out of the city if you're going to Queens. It's virtually impossible if you're going to New Jersey unless you take a ferry. But there are reports that they are opening the outbound George Washington Bridge, so that should help things along a little bit. But the rest of the Hudsons remain closed down on the outbound side, which is a tremendous problem. So let's go to map number 1 and work our way down. Again, the airports continue to be closed across the United States. No airport is open right now, so you can imagine a lot of confusion, folks going to the airports that maybe haven't called in advance to check their flights. Now, the East River crossings, again, this is the best way to get out of the city if you're going to Queens or points farther east. The Throgsneck, the Whitestone, the Triborough, the Queens Midtown Tunnel, all open Queens bound. Again, not open into the city. As Mr. Kelly just mentioned, outbound Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, 1 lane open there, so that is a little bit better news, but everything congested around those crossings. The Brooklyn Bridge remains closed in both directions. Williamsburg, Manhattan bridges, Brooklyn bound, pedestrians only. Again, updating the situation, limited outbound LIRR and Metro North service. Same story with New Jersey Transit. A, B, C, D, E, F, J, M, L, number 5s, number 7. Mr. Kelly just told us those are back on service, outbound service only on many of the subways. Please keep that in mind. You really shouldn't be trying to get into the city right now. Again, our biggest problems are the Hudson River crossings. The Lincoln, the Holland remain closed in both directions. Inbound George Washington is closed. We do have ferry service. That is one way to get to New Jersey this afternoon. Pier 11, Wall Street, West 38th Street running, East 34th, and Pier A. Those are the ferries running this afternoon. Again, that is limited service as well. Staten Island bound Verrazano Bridge is open. New Jersey bound Goethals, Bayonne, Outer Bridge Crossing, those are open. Outbound, of course, inbound, they are not. New Jersey Transit buses into and out of Manhattan remain suspended. We have major closures on roadways leading to the Lincoln Tunnel and the George Washington Bridge. Eastbound Route 4 is closed at Jones Road. That's one of the exits right before the bridge. Eastbound Route 46 is closed in Fort Lee. Eastbound Route 3 remains closed at the New Jersey Turnpike. The northbound New Jersey Turnpike is closed at exit 11. The eastbound Newark Bay extension of the Turnpike that leads to the Holland Tunnel is closed as well. Eastbound Route 80 is closed at the merge with Route 95. Northbound 1 and 9 is closed at the Pulaski Skyway. All roads leading to the Hudson River crossings are jammed. Again, the good news is outbound George Washington Bridge. They are in the process of opening that up. And, of course, alternate side parking rules are in effect today. I'm sure they will be suspended tomorrow, but we haven't gotten official word yet on that, so I'm not going to jump the gun.
Adrian, thank you. Now I understand the mayor is ready to speak to us. No, he's not there yet. Okay, we have a news conference from expected very shortly from the mayor and the governor, and of course we'll keep a watch on them. So as soon as they reach the podium there at the police academy on the east side of Manhattan, we will bring that to you. But Phil Pilevsky, our Mideast expert, is sitting here with us, and I was wondering, Phil, how, from your perspective, were these terrorists able to pull off such an elaborate terrorist act without the slightest detection on the part of the FBI, the anti-terrorist forces in this country?
As good as our agencies are, there are always going to be some people that could slip through, number one. But secondly, we have not yet adopted, and we have not faced the reality of the 21st century, what we're really dealing with. And as long as we keep our head in the sand and don't start really adopting very tough anti-terrorism measures, very tough security like the Israelis, we should have security men on every single plane. Even if it's going to cost us more money, we should have 1 to 2 security men at every plane. Israel has never, since they've done that, has never had a hijacked plane. I mean, there's a lot of things that we can do that we haven't do and that we're going to have to face.
I suspect our lives, those of us who travel by plane on occasion, are going to change considerably.
But more than just the plane, our lives here will change. Mm-hmm. This will change our lives. We hope that the Bush administration gets serious about dealing with terrorism. There's a lot that they have to do. They just can't allow this kind of thing to go on. Ultimately, once these countries or these rogue states have nuclear weapons, somebody's going to do a nuclear weapon on us. And then we won't be here sitting in the studio. Somebody in Wisconsin will be broadcasting about what happened to us.
You bring up Israel. I was in Israel about a year ago, and coming from New York and going to visit Israel, you're so upset because you see these young people, soldiers, walking around the streets with the big machine guns, and they're everywhere. They're on every corner, and there's bunches of them everywhere.
Right.
And, also, you can go a mile away, and it could take you an hour to go a mile in Israel because there are checkpoints along. They just, sporadically stop people.
Well, they're living in a microcosm of what we're going to be dealing with, and we're even more vulnerable than they are. They are dealing with it in the best way they can. We're much more vulnerable. We're a much more open society than Israel is.
Just to underscore your point, Roseanne, I remember when I was in Jerusalem, to go into a shopping mall.
Right.
You first of all are stopped not at the door. You're stopped at the entrance to the parking lot. The official looks in your car. He checks it inside and out. He writes down the number of the plate, make sure you're the person who's supposed to be driving that car, and that's just to get in the parking lot. Mm-hmm. Then you have the metal detector when you walk in the door, and inside the mall itself, there are specially constructed litter boxes so that if you drop a bomb in one of them, they will explode upward and not outward. So I think these are the kind of things that are in place in Israel right now because they have had a history of terrorism in their country that we're going to have to start dealing with it ourselves.
I was wondering, Phil, if you might think that the way we handle our airports might need to be changed a bit as well. I know we have a lot of private security firms that actually handle, access to the runways and to the...
I mean, a group would come with a few armed guys and just kill the thing and go right on a plane. That's why we have to have armed security men on the planes. I mean, if we had armed security men on the planes, we would have a shot of avoiding this.
You're talking, though, but we would have to, double and triple our police force, our security force.
We are going to have to allocate a big part of our resources to protect ourselves. There's even more that we're going to have to do. This is only the beginning. There's so many other things that this has to do with. This is a tremendous threat. This is a wake-up call. But unfortunately, this is the Pearl Harbor of the 21st century for us. And the president will have to deal with it. He will have to deal with these people overseas that are telling us they're going to destroy us. They're going to take out this country. He's going to have to deal with it. As long as you let them simmer and do these things and get away with it and you let these other countries build nuclear weapons, we're going to be sitting ducks ultimately.
All right, Phil, thank you very much. Appreciate your input. James Ford, Fox News reporter, is down in Lower Manhattan this morning. James?
That's right. We are here on 6th Avenue, just north of Broome Street. Look back here, and we'll demonstrate a point. 6th Avenue obviously typically is very busy. It is empty right now. You see all the smoke there in the background, as you have all day. What has been coming up 6th Avenue have been emergency vehicles and cars that were in the financial district, some at the World Trade Center when all of this happened. And that brings up another aspect of this story. We've seen a lot of heroism today of people volunteering to give blood. Many people have stopped by and asked us how they can help. And certainly the answer to the blood donation question is to go to any area hospital. They obviously need blood right now. That's the good side of the story. The bad side, what you're about to see. A lot of people have been trying to get souvenirs from the World Trade Center now that it is gone, and others are not happy about it at all. Let's look at tape.
When the collapse happened, so I guess it's what's left of a world landmark,
We got a war going on, and you want some dust from people that got killed?
You could just see smoke pouring out of both buildings. We're looking at it. I was trying to find out from a policeman how we'd inquire about people in the building because my assistant was in there and one of my neighbors. And the first building started to collapse, and it fell pretty much just straight down, and there was a big cloud of dust from the collapse of the building, and we tried to shield ourselves from the smoke as best that we could to try and breathe. And there was smoke everywhere. It took 20 minutes for it to clear before we could see around, and people were just amazing, trying to help each other. Burger King down on Maiden Lane was out trying to give everybody water as best they could.
Now, that gentleman had come out of the subway just as the explosion happened, and he brings up another aspect of this story. Let's take a look again down here as I explain what this is. Between explosions, in fact, we saw with our own eyes shortly after the first plane hit the tower, lots of emergency personnel. Look at this. These are buses right here that are bringing people out of the financial district. This perhaps is a more positive aspect of the story in that there are people to be brought out. We just saw a half dozen busloads with police escort. But let's go back to that point that the gentleman was making there on the tape, which is this. We have seen hundreds of emergency personnel. In fact, here on your left, here comes a firefighter who's come out from the scene. People like him, hundreds of them, who responded right at the beginning of this, followed by the separate implosions that you saw. And what that gentleman, who was an eyewitness, was concerned about is what has happened to that emergency personnel. Certainly that information will unfold as this situation continues to unfold. We'll get that information. But it's, I can attest, it's a very tense situation all over downtown. The good side of the story, once again, a lot of people wanting to help out and do their part. More people here who have been in and out of the area where there is the smoke you see in the background. A lot of people wanting to help out, do their part. At the same time, a lot of gawkers, a lot of onlookers, a lot of people taking souvenir photographs. There have also been others who've been trying to stop those people from doing that. We'll keep you updated throughout the day here downtown, where we are live. I'm James Ford, Fox 5 News.
All right, James, thank you very much. Just got word now from Nassau County that Nassau has made the following emergency equipment available to New York City. They have 10 fire trucks standing by, pumpers, 6 ladders, fire ladders, 10 ambulances, 4 emergency rescue vehicles, 2 police helicopters, and we understand the mayor is going to talk to us now. All right, he's not there. The mayor is on his way. This is the temporary emergency facility that the city is using, the Emergency Command Center. The mayor is there, and we're expecting him to talk to us shortly. Again, all emergency medical technicians in Nassau County have also been called in, and firefighting personnel as well. They are on standby out in Nassau County. That county, next to Queens and Brooklyn, as you know, is on a level 3 alert, and that is the highest possible alert for its emergency forces until further notice. The picture you see is at the Mayor's Emergency Command Center. It's somewhere in Manhattan, and we are expecting the mayor to appear at that podium very shortly and talk to us about the aftermath of the picture on the right of your screen, the devastation that took place at the World Trade Center this morning. Here's Mayor Giuliani and the governor.
Good afternoon. Today is obviously one of the most difficult days in the history of the city and the country. The tragedy that we're all undergoing right now is something that we've had nightmares about, but probably thought wouldn't happen. My heart goes out to all of the innocent victims of this horrible and vicious acts of terrorism. And our focus now has to be on saving as many lives as possible. We have hundreds of police officers and firefighters who are engaging in rescue efforts in Lower Manhattan. I want to thank Governor Pataki for the incredible cooperation and coordination, and including deploying the National Guard that will be available to relieve our police officers and firefighters and emergency workers in the next couple of hours. The governor and I just spoke to the President of the United States. The coordination with the federal government from the time of the first attack has been excellent, including closing off the airspace around Manhattan and doing everything that can possibly be done in the face of this barbaric act to make the city secure. And we will strive now very hard to save as many people as possible and to send a message that the city of New York and the United States of America is much stronger than any group of barbaric terrorists, that our democracy, that our rule of law, that our strength and our willingness to defend ourselves will ultimately prevail. And I'd ask the people of New York City to do everything that they can to cooperate, not to be frightened, to go about their lives as normal. Everything is safe right now in the city, and the people who are doing the relief effort need all the help they can get. And then, Governor, thank you very much for your assistance and your help and your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, for your leadership through this crisis. This is a vicious attack upon New York. It's an attack upon America. It's an attack upon the whole concept of freedom and our way of life. And we cannot let these attacks succeed. The first step has to be to make sure we do everything in our power to protect the people and to save the lives of those whose lives are still at risk, and to help those who have been injured. And I want to commend the Mayor, and I want to thank my colleagues from Connecticut, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and the federal government have all offered and made ready support to help us deal with this ongoing crisis. The people of New York are not only the freest and most diverse people in the world, we're also, I believe, the most capable of rising to meet the challenges of this type of attack. And right now we want New Yorkers to remain calm, to go about their business, to appreciate the fact that everything to provide for their safety is being done, to appreciate that everything that can be done to provide for the health and the needs of the people who are still at risk is being done, and that we will continue to work to make sure that we get through this as strongly and quickly as possible. I want to thank the federal administration. Secretary Thompson has been on the phone with me a number of times, as well as the President, for what they are offering and prepared to do. And we're just confident that, while this is a horrible attack and one that is despicable and really unthinkable in its magnitude, we will get through this. And we will continue to have a great and free country, state, and society.
Do we know the number of casualties at this point, sir?
I don't think we really want to speculate about that. The number of casualties will be more than any of us can bear ultimately. And I don't think we want to speculate on the number of casualties. The effort now has to be to save as many people as possible.
There are large
numbers. And I don't think we will know the answer to that until sometime tomorrow or the next day.
Were there large numbers of firefighters?
There are a large number of firefighters and police officers who are in harm's way, and we don't know how many we've lost. But there's no doubt we've lost some firefighters and police officers.
Do you know anything about the cause of the explosions that brought the two buildings down yet? Was it caused by the planes or by something else?
We
second explosion?
We believe that it was caused by the after effects of the planes hitting the buildings. We don't know of an additional explosion after that.
Could you tell us, do you expect any further attacks on New York? Is there anything to indicate that there could be more bombs, more planes out there? I know originally there was a report that 8 planes had been hijacked, 4 have only been accounted for. What about the remaining 4? And is there any possibility that there could be bombs on the ground planted by...
We have no specific information to that effect. Obviously, the city is now closed. The airspace around the city is closed. And we are on heightened alert. But we have no specific information suggesting any further attack.
Can you tell us where the planes came from? Major warships coming into the port of New York.
I think to give the people of New York confidence, to show that the federal government is standing with us, and to just to make certain that nothing further happens. This has been a very, very difficult and traumatic day for the people of the United States and the people of the city. And I think that it's an act that shows that the federal government is going to do everything they can to support us and help us.
Can you give us an idea of the extent of the rescue effort that's going on right now in Lower Manhattan? The scope of this operation?
There are over 1,000 rescue workers, probably about 2,000 that are deployed, trying to get into the buildings, trying to find people, trying to search for people. The governor and I spoke a couple of hours ago. The governor has deployed the National Guard to relieve them because our people are going to need reinforcements pretty soon. But right now they don't want to leave because they're searching for innocent citizens, and they're searching for some of their brothers and sisters.
Are you finding survivors?
Yes, we have some numbers that we can give you. We have 1,500 people at Liberty State Park who were evacuated, described as walking wounded. They were evacuated by ferry and other means. There are about 600 as of about 15 minutes ago, in local hospitals that we account for. 600 people that are being treated in local hospitals. And there are 150 in particular that were critical, that were moved by EMS. New York City has 170 hospitals. So we have a lot of hospitals, and we're utilizing all of them. Probably the one that was the hardest hit was St. Vincent's Hospital. And I would like to just single them out and commend them, because as I was rushing down there, after the first plane hit, and before the second, they were already deploying people on the street. I could see the doctors and nurses outside getting ready to receive people. And that was before the second plane actually hit the World Trade Center.
What was your experience down there?
Also blood donations. We have several sites for blood donations. 153 East 53rd Street, 66th in Amsterdam, which is the Red Cross, and 310 East 67th Street. If people want to do something and they can donate blood, that's going to help not just today, but tomorrow and the next day. This relief effort is going to take some time.
Mr. Mayor, you were one of the first people down there. Can you describe the scene in your own words, what you saw down there?
I don't know that I'm really able to describe it. It was the most horrific scene I've ever seen in my whole life. We saw the World Trade Center in flames, a big gaping hole all the way on the top of it. We could see people jumping from the top of the building. And then we went into Barclay Street, 75 Barclay Street, I think it was, and we were there when the building collapsed, and it collapsed in part on 75 Barclay Street. So we were trapped in the building for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, trying to get out different exits. And we finally went through a basement and came out 100 Park Place.
Did you ever fear for your own safety, sir?
Sure, yeah.
What went through your mind?
I don't think anything went through my mind other than making sure that we all remained calm and found an exit and just tried to figure out the most intelligent thing to do. Probably the same thing that went through the minds of 10,000 other New Yorkers who I could see on the streets, and I really have to commend them. If you really want to know what New Yorkers are all about, you just watch the way in which they handled themselves. They didn't panic. They moved deliberately. They moved swiftly. But they didn't hurt each other. They helped each other. I mean, these are just the most wonderful people in the world.
Do we know anything about the composition of that dust that blankets Lower Manhattan? Is there any asbestos or any hazardous material in that dust?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Mr. Mayor, there were reports
a gas explosion related to this. Are you aware of that? There was a gas leak or possible.
We don't believe it. We don't believe that's the case.
Mr. Mayor, can you tell us anything about where the planes come from, where the aircraft came from?
Bill Diamond reminds me that we've turned off the gas in the city buildings, just to be certain.
Can you tell us
as a precaution
about where these aircraft came from? There was a report that may have been hijacked in Boston.
I think we should leave. I think we should leave that up to the federal government to. Yes, we do have some information, but I think we should leave that up to the federal government to release that information. Our focus is on the relief efforts. And
Governor,
What about security for the rest of the
do you think there should
city?
be any
Now that this is
retaliation on the
happening?
part of the United States for what happened here in this country, both in New York, Washington, and other places?
First step right now, Marcia, is to make sure we do everything to help those people who need our support, and whether they're injured or still trapped in buildings. The second thing is to make sure at the same time we're providing the maximum security against possible additional incidents. But clearly, this is an attack upon America. It's an attack upon our freedom and our way of life, and we must retaliate and go after those who perpetuated this heinous crime against the people of America.
Mayor, this is compared to Pearl Harbor. Do you consider this to be an act of war? This has been compared.
I'll do both.
This has been compared to Pearl Harbor. Do you consider this to be an act of war?
This is a vicious, unprovoked, horrible attack on innocent men, women, and children. It's one of the most heinous acts, certainly in world history. And as the governor said, and I said to the president, we fully and completely support him in any action that he has to take in order to make an example out of the people who are responsible for this.
Is it an act of war in your mind?
I don't know that I want to use those words. I think the president is the one that has to respond, and I think what he has to know is that all of us in New York support him, and support him completely in the efforts that he's going to have to make over the next couple of days, week, and to make a point that people can't do this. You can't attack innocent men, women, and children. And ultimately, I'm totally confident that American democracy and the American rule of law will prevail. And the people of New York are going to help to demonstrate that over the next couple of days.
Anybody take responsibility for this? Any group take responsibility at this time? And what is the city doing to safeguard the citizens now that something like this has happened?
Well, first of all, I don't know of anyone that's taken responsibility for it at this time. And secondly, the New York City Police Department is fully deployed, not just in the rescue effort, but all throughout the city of New York, offering as much protection and as much security as we're capable of for the citizens of the city. And at this point, I believe that the people in New York City can demonstrate our resolve and our support for all of the people that were viciously attacked today by going about their lives and showing everyone that vicious, cowardly terrorists can't stop us from being a free country and a place that functions. And we'll do everything we can to make that point.
Jennifer Steinauer, please. Just a housekeeping. Can you please tell us what's going to happen to the New York primary?
This morning I issued an order suspending the primary across the state. There will be no primary today, and we'll reschedule it once we get through this.
Jennifer,
can you please walk us through the municipal services right now? What's going on with the subway, the schools, the courts?
The subway, the schools, the chancellor, I commend the chancellor. He was on the phone a number of times with us. He coordinated very, very carefully what would happen. He thought it out, and he came up with a very good plan, which was essentially to keep the schools open, to keep the children in school, so we didn't have a large number of children in the different boroughs that would be released from school. They're being released, I shouldn't say as normal, but basically on the normal schedule. If parents aren't there to pick up the young children, then the children will be taken to a center, and the parents will be notified to come and pick them up. The children who have Metro cards, who normally travel on the subway, will be able to do that. The subways are functioning in 4 of the 5 boroughs, and can we get an update, Joe, on how the subway's doing in Manhattan?
All the lettered lines are working.
And in Manhattan?
In Manhattan lines, all the lettered lines.
All the lettered lines are working, including in Manhattan. And throughout the rest of the city, public transportation is normal. So the children should be able to return from school in the normal fashion. And if any children don't have parents to pick them up, then we'll hold them, let the parents know, and then the parents can come and pick them up.
Mr. Mayor, you mentioned you were on Barclay Street. What's the radius of damage that's been affected? How many other side streets around the world?
I don't think we know yet. The whole area of Lower Manhattan has been very much affected by it.
How many
police and fire are involved? Like how many? All NYPD off-duty officers, that they come in, or like
all NYPD and FDNY officers are on duty now. And we're going to need all of them, and again, thanks to the governor and the way in which the state reacted, we will have 1,600 National Guard to relieve them over a period of time, so we can get some relief for them.
If anybody's looking for someone that may have been in the World Trade Center or in and around that area, what should they do? How can they do it?
We're going to give you numbers so that we can try to help coordinate that. Individual businesses have already done that, but we will as soon as we can find some time from the relief efforts, give you a number in which people can call, and then we can direct them to the right place.
Have there been any reports of looting or anything like that? Any lawlessness?
There have been no reports of lawlessness, no reports of looting. As I said, we saw a lot of people that were part of the escape effort, and they seem to be conducting themselves in a very, very sensible way, a very deliberate way. They seem to be helping each other. So I don't think we have any reports like that at all.
So the only National Guard we'll see will be in Lower Manhattan, in the bomb site area. They won't be patrolling the rest of Manhattan.
No, the purpose of it is to help with the relief effort. We're going to need the help of the state, surrounding areas with heavy-duty equipment.
When will they be arriving?
National Guard troops, some have arrived already, and we expect to have up to close to 2,000 between the National Guard and the state police by later this evening.
Mayor, bridges and tunnels will have to stay closed.
I think everything is closed for now, and then maybe in about an hour or two we can give you an update on what the plan will be for tomorrow.
We saw a lot of lightly injured people walking out of the area because obviously the emergency services were needed for the very seriously injured. People covered with dust. Some people had difficulty breathing. Is there any health advice to give to people who were caught in this thing, who are not necessarily at risk of losing their life, but
I think well, obviously if you feel ill or you feel that you've been affected by it, you should go to a hospital and get checked out. But if it's just discomfort that you feel, then you can do basically what we did, was to wash our faces off and
Again, is there going to be an attempt to test
get rid of the clothes and get to an area where you can breathe in fresh air.
How many people were in the World Trade Center at the time of this attack?
It was business had already started. It was
So what's normal
right before 9 o'clock. I don't know.
Tens of thousands?
Yes. Approximately. Someone just gave me a number of approximately 10,000, but that's a guess.
How long will the city remain on a heightened state of alert?
Until we're told not to. Until the FBI and the police department and the federal government tells us that we shouldn't. Right now, the city is should be on a state of alert. Now, instead of frightening people, that should make people feel more confident that everything is being done to keep things secure. And again, let me emphasize that the reason for the National Guard, because I heard the question before, is to help with the relief effort, not because there's any fear of any other problems in the city right now.
How is the
Mr.
Port
Mayor, can you
Authority
tell us
certain
about
kinds of
the other
buildings,
public
Mr. Mayor?
buildings, City Hall, One Police Plaza? When will Chief say for you to return?
I don't know yet. I don't know yet. Hopefully soon, but I don't know the answer to that.
And we heard reports that One Police Plaza was evacuated. Was that true?
No, the command center is open.
And it was never.
We have people in the command center right now.
Mr. Mayor, there have also been reports of large loss of life among the police and firemen who were sent there to rescue people. How accurate are those reports?
There is no question that we lost police officers and firefighters, and some that I know personally, and all of us here know personally, that we're very worried about. And we're not going to know the answer to that until much later. And maybe we should just close now and give you a briefing later. And I would just ask everyone, I talked to Cardinal Egan before because he's at St. Vincent's Hospital. Everybody should in their own way say a prayer and ask God for help and for assistance, and also ask God to give us the strength to overcome this, because I know we're going to need strength to overcome it. And I want the people of New York to be an example to the rest of the country and the rest of the world that terrorism can't stop us. American democracy is much stronger than vicious, cowardly terrorists, and we're going to overcome this.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Well done, Mayor. Do you know when the next briefing will be?
It's coming from the Mayor's Emergency Center with the Mayor and the Governor and the Police Commissioner. I think you'd have to say they both characterized the attacks in words that you might expect: horrible, vicious acts of terrorism, barbaric, things like that, attack on our basic freedoms and our way of life. But I think what's important is they both urged us not to knuckle under, if you will, to terrorism, to go about our lives as we usually do, to go about our business, if we go to work, if we go to school, and just do not let this act of terrorism, as vile and as unspeakable horror as it is, don't let us get to us, because that would go to the end of the terrorists. A pilot and our own Nick Gregory is with us to say that you are a pilot as well as a meteorologist. Give us some idea, if you would, Nick, how planes are able to get this close to the World Trade Center and one and then another go at it and create this devastation?
Well, the airspace that really surrounds that area, Jim, is available to all aircraft. Usually when airplanes are coming in and out of the New York area, especially LaGuardia Airport, they have the arrivals that come up the river, up and down the Hudson River at about 2,500 feet and above. And smaller aircraft are not forbidden from flying below that. In fact, I've done it many times. You fly at 1,000 feet up and down the river, and you can get a beautiful view of the area. And particularly, again, in this case, unless you know exactly where the airplane is going, and these airplanes are traveling at such a tremendous speed that it's hard to really do anything to stop them at that particular point in time. Now, the Boeing 757 and Boeing 767 aircraft are very similar in design, just difference in engines and size of the aircraft and the passengers that they hold. The flight crews that fly these airplanes are usually qualified to fly both. And just to give you an idea of how these planes are actually programmed to fly, because Boeing, in the design of these airplanes, wanted these airplanes to be flown by the computer. They really prefer the flight crews not to hand fly the airplanes. And what most pilots do that fly these, usually at about 1,000 feet after takeoff, they engage the autopilot. And the autopilot will then take over the pre-programmed flight that has been put into the computer, which, by the way, is done prior to pushback at the gate. So when the airplane is sitting at the gate and you're boarding the airplane, the pilots up front are putting in the navigational coordinates, they're putting in the flight parameters, how fast the plane's going to go, that sort of thing. And at about 1,000 feet after takeoff, the pilot hits the button and the plane then flies itself, because that's really the way Boeing wants the airplane to be flown. Now, a very close friend of mine is a Boeing 757 pilot, and I recently had the opportunity to go into a training class with him and actually fly the airplane for about an hour and a half. And I can tell you, when it's on the computer, it's a joy to fly. And when you have to take over and fly it by hand, which I also had the opportunity to do, it does require a bit of work, and certainly a novice pilot would not be able to do that. I mean,
so either these terrorists were accomplished pilots, or else they were able to convince the pilot, the original pilot of the plane, to direct it straight into the World Trade Center?
Well, I would have to think that your first scenario is probably more plausible, that the hijackers probably knew their way around the cockpit, because I can't imagine that a flight crew would intentionally, I mean, who knows under what kind of duress your response would be, but knowing the way these airplanes are designed, and again, having had the chance to fly them, you don't just sit down and start flying them, because you have to disengage the autopilot. It's already on a pre-programmed flight, and so you have to take it off of that flight and literally then hand fly it. And also there's the airplane has something called auto throttles, and that's being used during the flight, meaning that the power is managed by the computer. So you have to turn that off as well. So someone would have to know what buttons to push to be able to steer that airplane.
At what point do you think the people who were in air traffic control said something's wrong here? They're looking at, presumably they're looking at these blips on a radar screen.
Yes. It could have been in two cases. One where the blip went off the course because of the pre-programmed courses that these aircraft had already been assigned to fly by air traffic control. Prior to leaving, every airplane has its assigned course, and they expect you and that aircraft to fly on that course. So once it started deviating, that could be the first sign. Maybe in communications, trying to reach the aircraft. The controller may not have gotten a correct response from the pilot. There are also devices on the airplane that the pilot can use to inform air traffic control of a hijack without alerting the hijackers. There's a particular code that is put into the transponder of the aircraft. The transponder being the ability for air traffic control to see the airplane in the sky and identify it as a particular airplane.
Is this the black box that you're talking about?
It's not. The black box is the box that is the flight recorder. This is a box that sits in the cockpit that every aircraft that flies in the air traffic control system is assigned a number so aircraft can be interrogated by radar. When that number is changed to a particular code, alarms go off at air traffic control centers, alerting that controller that this plane is indeed being hijacked. Now, whether the flight crew had time to do that or not, we don't know.
But Nick, you're also talking about how sophisticated these guys probably had to be to know their way around the cockpit.
Absolutely.
Could they have known about what you're talking about right now, so that the flight crew could not have alerted anybody?
Absolutely. If they knew how to certainly disengage the autopilot and fly that airplane in some fashion, they could have indeed also put that transponder to read a code where they would have disappeared off the screen. Mm-hmm. Where, in other words, the code would have been changed so they couldn't track the airplane anymore, or it would be tracked without its identification. The controller would just see a little blip moving across the screen without the identification United Flight 175 or American Flight 11, because when the air traffic controllers look at their screens, every aircraft, of course, comes up with an identification.
What about the attack on the Pentagon? Would that have been a situation where the plane was just on that facility so quickly they didn't have time to react?
Very possibly. It seemed that if that was indeed the plane that took off from Washington Dulles, it wouldn't take very long to get there. And again, when you're talking about a 250,000-pound airplane being pointed at a specific target, that's not as easy as you think it is to do, because the plane has to be maneuvered, and it has a certain amount of momentum, and when you turn the airplane, there's a bit of a delay in the response of how the airplane performs. So there indeed is some skill involved in pointing the airplane exactly where you want it to go, especially if you're trying to use it in such a terrible fashion.
And we were told this morning from eyewitnesses that the plane was banking sharply at the first plane before it hit the World Trade Center the first time. Another question. There were 10, maybe 15 minutes between the time that the first plane hit and the second plane hit. Was there anything that they could have done in the Common Eye in Kennedy or wherever they control the flight paths to realize that another crash is going to happen?
If indeed they were able to first understand what happened the first time, there may not have been enough time to digest what really just happened, because it's unthinkable. And so from the controller's standpoint, watching this, if indeed it was the same controller handling the flight, because I don't know if we've figured out yet which plane went in first from which departure airport in that respect. So they could have actually been on two different courses, and by the time the first one occurred, it wouldn't have struck home that another plane may have also deviated off its course. And by the time, again, that whole scenario unfolded, really to the point of, again, in disbelief, to understand what has actually transpired in the matter of about 15 minutes.
Right. Nick, a friend of mine was actually on his way to work this morning and noticed the first plane prior to it crashing into the World Trade Center tower. And he said, as he was walking along, because we see planes flying overhead all the time with the airports being so close by, and he's walking and he's noticing how low this plane is.
Yes.
I mean, it immediately grabbed his attention, and he thought, what the heck is that plane flying so low for?
Exactly.
So it was something that would grab people's attention.
Sure. People that live in that area, they're used to the airliners flying overhead, because they do fly on approach to LaGuardia at about, but they're at about 2,000 or really 2,500 feet and above. And it's really the sightseeing airplanes, the helicopter traffic that is below that altitude, and you can fly at 800 feet above the Hudson River without a problem. But the big planes don't do that, and that's really what stuns someone, is to see this huge airplane at such a low altitude.
Exactly.
And Jim, you'd mentioned something about the black box moments ago. In another way to analyze what's happened here is, if indeed they ever find the black box from these airplanes in the rubble, there will be a way to understand, to hear what may have happened in the cockpit.
And we'll hear the voice recordings and the flight data?
Absolutely. You'll get all of that information. And what'll be interesting to see is, I'm sure already the air traffic control tapes have been pulled and for analysis as to whether they were able to reach the crew, what the response was. But if indeed they ever do find the black boxes of these airplanes in the rubble, then we'll know a lot of what happened in that cockpit.
All right. Thank you very much, Nick. You're not wearing your weather hat today. Neither is Dave Price, who's out on the streets of Manhattan this afternoon. Dave?
All right, right now we're at 5th Avenue. I'm going to move the phone away from my ear because I'm getting a little bit of feedback. We're at 5th Avenue, just south of St. Patrick's Cathedral. And just a little while ago, we actually went into the cathedral and watched people beginning to stream in, light candles, say prayers. We were told that the Cardinal left his residence earlier this morning, and all day he has been visiting hospitals around the area and doing what he can to provide spiritual support to those not only who may have been victims of this tragedy, but those who are providing relief and assistance as well. We spoke to several people who made a special stop at the cathedral. Here's what they had to say.
I saw it happen. I work at NYU, and I heard the plane go down 15 minutes before 9 o'clock. And then we realized that it hit the World Trade Center.
You can't believe anything that's going on. And just glad to be alive, really.
Thankful.
Absolutely.
Being a native New Yorker, this probably is the saddest day that I can remember. I remember Friday, November the 22nd, 1963, when President Kennedy was assassinated. Ironically, on the way over this morning, I was on the W train on the Manhattan Bridge, and a fellow who was seated next to me exclaimed, and I looked out the window and I saw the smoke and the debris coming down, which was the first plane, and I thought it was an accident.
That gentleman eventually broke down in tears. For a lot of people, whether or not they knew someone, whether or not they worked down there, whether or not they escaped, not the question. It is just torn at the emotional strings of pretty much anybody who has seen the devastation either firsthand or on television. We're back now live on 5th Avenue, and if I can ask Alan to pan over to the sides of the street. At this point, things are pretty much quieting down. Now, just pods of people either assembling for a bus ride home or meeting people to try and make alternative arrangements, but not a lot of activity. Interestingly enough, a lot of people have been walking by asking, where can I go to donate blood? And I'm sure you back at the studio have all of those addresses at close hand. We continue to have people, though, walking on the streets, looking down well to our south at the southern tip of Manhattan. I don't know if you can see that plume from this distance and with this camera, but still, every time people walk onto the street and get a view of what's happening to the south of us, they think there may have yet been another explosion, and that's simply not the case. That is still from the devastation that took place earlier this morning and subsequent events. Also, just a few minutes ago, we saw a convoy